Today I'll be showing you how I built this mini NAS using a Raspberry Pi 5 and 2 SSDs. This does include the build guide for my custom kit, but there are tons of other designs online to choose from. I'll also go over the software side to get you set up with OpenMediaVault. These are all the 3D printed parts included in the kit, as well as a bag of M2 and M3 nuts and screws. You'll also need 2 USB to SATA connectors, the official Pi power supply, a Pi 5, and 2 SSDs. To start, we'll use 8 M3 nuts for the top and bottom pieces. The best way to do this is to pinch them into the hole using some pliers. Using 4 M2 by 8mm screws and nuts, we can install the feet onto the bottom plate. The 4 legs will push into these slots with the rough side facing you. The sides with the magnets will face towards the side of the NAS. Now we can snap the top plate on. Before going any further, place the trays into the NAS with the Pi tray at the top to plan your design. This way you can see which holes will need an M3 nut installed on the back. I'm going with this design here that has a white accent between the Pi and the SSDs. With the top off, you can see here how I placed the M3 nuts to align with my front panel design. I also installed the nuts for the back fan bracket. After putting the top plate back on, we can use 8 M3 by 10 screws to secure the frame together. To prepare the side panels, we can snap the 4 by 2mm magnets into the holes like we did with the nuts. Make sure to keep in mind which sides of the magnets correctly attract to the magnets on the legs. We can install the SSDs into the trays using 4 M3 by 6mm screws. The Pi 5 is installed in a similar way, but it uses 4 M2 by 8mm screws with the nuts on the bottom side of the tray. Now we can slot all of the trays into the NAS and secure them using 10 M3 by 8mm screws. We can now move on to the back, installing the fan bracket using 4 of the same M2 by 8mm screws. To start wiring things up, just plug the Pi power supply into the Pi using the small cutout on the side panel if needed, like you see me do here. The SSDs can then be connected to the Pi using 2 USB 3.0 ports, and we can fully move on to setting up the software side. To start, let's make sure the Pi is powered on, and we can plug one of the SSDs into the PC via USB to install the operating system. Head over to the official Raspberry Pi website and download the Raspberry Pi Imager. Once you open it up, select Choose Device and pick Raspberry Pi 5. Select Choose OS and head down to Raspberry Pi OS Other. Scroll down until you see Raspberry Pi OS Legacy 64-bit Lite. Under it should say a port of Debian Bookworm. Go to Choose Storage and select the SSD that you plugged in. Hit Next and select Edit Settings. Change your host name to something you'll remember. I chose Pi 5, and for the username and password, set it to admin and admin. Click Services at the top and make sure you have Enable SSH turned on. This way we can control the Pi remotely without having to plug it into an external monitor, keyboard, and mouse. That's all we have to do here, but I'm going to click through these pages so you can copy the options I have here. When you're done, hit Save, Yes, and Yes again. This will delete everything that you have on the SSD as of now. Once this is done, you can unplug your SSD and plug it back into your Raspberry Pi. You can then plug your Ethernet cable from your router into your Raspberry Pi. Next, you're going to download Advanced IP Scanner. This is going to show you all the devices on your network and help you identify their IP addresses. You're going to need the address of your Pi so you can SSH into it and install OpenMediaVault. Once it's open, hit Scan and find the IP address of your Raspberry Pi. Open the command prompt on Windows and type SSH space admin at followed by the IP address of the Pi that you found through the IP scanner. If it asks yes or no, make sure you select yes and then enter the password, which should be admin. Now you'll be into the Raspberry Pi. Next, type sudo apt update and hit enter. Type sudo apt upgrade and hit enter. Once that's done, go to the description and paste this code. This is going to let you download OpenMediaVault from the GitHub. Now you can unplug your Raspberry Pi and plug it back in and wait for it to boot up. Next, open up your browser and type in the IP address of your Pi that you found earlier. This will take you to the login page where you can enter admin and admin. When you're at the home page, go to the left side and hit storage, disks, and find the disk that you want to use as your main storage. Hit the eraser icon and select Quick Wipe. When that's done, go to File Systems, Plus, and hit ext4. Select your file system and hit Save. At the top, select your SSD and then hit 85 or 90%. After you hit Save, you'll see this yellow pending configuration changes. Make sure to hit the check mark. This will pop up every time you make a change, so make sure you always go up and hit the check mark to apply it. Select shared folders on the side, hit the plus, and then create a name for your shared folder. Select your storage device and add a tag if you want. I'm just going to use main. Hit save and hit the yellow check mark again. Select the name of your shared folder and hit the permissions icon. Here you can give your users access to read and write. If you have troubles logging in later, head back to this users page and add a new user and give it permissions to read and write. That way you have a new username and password. Go to services on the side and hit smb/cifs. Select enabled and then select enable recycle bin if that's what you want, and then hit save and then the yellow check mark again. For the last step, go to SMB settings and add your shared folder that you created earlier. Hit save and then hit the yellow check mark. At this point, we have the shared folder completely set up and the NAS is accessible from any device in your network. And now I'm going to show you how to access it from a Windows computer. Right-click in your File Explorer and hit Add a Network Location. Select the folder icon and hit Next. Here you can enter // the IP address of your Pi, // and then the name of that shared folder you created in OpenMediaVault. Next, you're going to log in with your credentials. Remember, if you're having problems with this, make sure you go create another user in OpenMediaVault, give it permissions to read and write, and then you can log in as that user. Name it whatever you want and hit Next, and now you're able to access your NAS and move files between all devices on your network. It should show up in your File Explorer just like any other hard drive that you would have manually plugged into your motherboard. This is just scratching the surface of what you can do with network attached storage, so make sure you subscribe if you want to see more videos on what you can do with this device. And if you want more information about the NAS, go over to my Etsy listing that I have in the description.